Have you ever found yourself caught in a moment so unexpected, so emotionally tangled, that your entire world shifts in just a heartbeat? Imagine this. The man you've known for years, the one you thought of as family, suddenly looks at you with eyes you've never seen before. And then, in a single breath, he confesses the one thing you never expected to hear. I'm in love with you. This is not just a story about love. It's about loyalty, temptation, silence, and choices that can change everything. And today, on Tangled Hearts, I'm about to share a story that many are too afraid to admit they've lived through. Before we begin, if you believe that love, relationships, and the secrets of the human heart are stories worth telling, then subscribe to Tangled Hearts, because every week we uncover the moments that shape us, break us, and sometimes set us free. It began like any other evening. The house was quiet, the lights were dim, and I was sitting in the living room, half lost in thought. My husband was away on a business trip, something that had become almost routine for us. I had learned to handle the silence, to fill it with books, music, or simple reflections. But that night, the silence was interrupted by a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there he was, my husband's best friend. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel had been in our lives for years. He was the man who helped us move into our first home, the one who cracked jokes at the dinner table, the one who toasted at our wedding with words so beautiful they made me cry. He was like a brother to my husband, and in many ways, I thought of him as part of the family too. But something felt different that night. His eyes lingered too long. His smile carried a weight I couldn't quite name. He asked if he could come in just for a while. He said he needed someone to talk to. And of course, I agreed, because that's what friends do, right? They listen. What I didn't know was that this would be the night everything changed. We sat across from each other, the dim glow of the lamp casting soft shadows on the walls. At first, the conversation was casual, about work, about the news, about the little frustrations of everyday life. I laughed. He laughed. It felt normal, safe. But then his tone shifted. His laughter faded into silence. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. And then he said it. Words that would echo in my head long after the night was over. I can't keep this inside anymore. I'm in love with you. Time froze. The room went quiet. I could hear nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. At first, I thought he was joking. This was Daniel, the man who teased me for my bad cooking, who helped fix our leaky sink, who cheered the loudest at our wedding. He couldn't possibly mean it, but the look in his eyes told me otherwise. It wasn't a joke. It was raw, it was real, and it was tearing him apart. In that moment, I felt a storm inside me, shock, confusion, guilt, even a strange flicker of something I couldn't name. Because here's the truth. When someone looks at you with unfiltered emotion, with a kind of vulnerability that strips away every mask, you feel it. You can't ignore it. But at the same time, I thought of my husband. The man I had promised my life to. The man who trusted both me and his best friend without question. And suddenly, I was caught in a silence so heavy, I didn't know how to breathe. Do you tell him to stop? Do you listen? Do you walk away? Or do you let the moment unfold, knowing it could burn everything to the ground? That night, with Daniel sitting across from me, waiting for my response, I realized something. Sometimes the most dangerous confessions are not the ones we speak, but the ones we leave unspoken. And what happened next is a choice I still wonder about to this day. Silence filled the room. Daniel's words, "I'm in love with you," still hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to speak, to say something, but my throat felt dry, my voice stolen by the weight of what had just happened. His eyes didn't waver. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't teasing. He was deadly serious. "Say something," he whispered, almost pleading. But what could I say? That this was impossible, that it was wrong, that I wished I hadn't heard it, even though a part of me already knew there had always been something. I looked at Daniel, and memories flashed in my mind. The way he always showed up when we needed him. The way he sometimes lingered in his goodbyes just a little too long. The way his jokes often carried a softness, like he was covering something deeper. And now it all made sense. He had loved me in silence, for years. And that silence had broken tonight. I felt torn in half. On one side was loyalty, to my husband, to the vows I had made, to the trust that bound our marriage. On the other side was the truth. The undeniable truth that another man had opened his heart to me, and in some dark, hidden corner, a small part of me felt something too. Not love, not yet, but a dangerous awareness. I finally found my voice. "Daniel, you can't say that to me." My words were shaky, almost a whisper. "You're his best friend, my husband's best friend. Do you have any idea what this could do?" He didn't back down. "I know," he said. His voice cracked with pain, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Every time I saw you, every time I watched you laugh with him, or the way you cared for him, it killed me inside. Because all I could think was, why couldn't it have been me? My chest ached. His honesty was raw, heartbreaking even. But it was a truth that had no place in our lives. I stood up, pacing, desperate to escape the intensity of the moment. My hands trembled as I wrapped my arms around myself. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into a choice that could destroy everything. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was selfish, reckless, cruel even, for putting this burden on me. But another part of me, a quieter, softer part, felt sorrow. Because I knew what it meant to love someone silently. To carry a feeling that eats away at you day after day, with no release. And now he had released it, right into my life. "Please," he said, stepping closer, "I don't expect you to say anything. I don't expect you to choose me. I just needed you to know, to hear it once." His voice cracked again, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. Daniel, the strong, confident man who had always seemed unshakable, was breaking in front of me. And that's when I felt it, the pull, not towards love, not towards betrayal, but towards comfort, towards wanting to ease the pain I saw in him. It scared me. Because sometimes temptation doesn't look like passion. Sometimes it looks like compassion. And compassion, when misplaced, can be just as dangerous. I took a step back, reminding myself of the line I could not cross. "Daniel, I think you should go." His face fell, but he nodded. He walked to the door slowly, like each step weighed 1,000 pounds. But just before he left, he turned around, his voice trembling as he said, "Even if you never say it, I just want you to know you'll always be the one for me." And with that, he was gone. The door clicked shut, and I collapsed onto the couch, my heart pounding, my mind spiraling. I knew this wasn't over. Confessions don't disappear. They don't fade away. They linger, they wait, they grow. And deep down, I knew that this was just the beginning of a storm that could tear everything apart. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, warm and ordinary. But inside me, nothing felt ordinary anymore. I went through the motions, making coffee, tidying the living room. But every corner of the house still carried Daniel's presence, his words echoing like a haunting whisper. "I'm in love with you." I couldn't push it out of my mind. And the worst part? My husband was coming home that evening. The husband returns. When he walked through the door, suitcase in hand, his face lit up at the sight of me. He wrapped me in a hug, kissed me, and laughed as though he had missed me every second he was gone. And I hugged him back. But in my chest, there was a knot, because I had a secret now, one he didn't know about, one that could destroy him if he did. He asked me about my week, about the neighbors, about the little things. And I smiled, answered, nodded at the right times. But I couldn't meet his eyes for too long, because I was terrified he'd see it, that shadow of guilt I carried. Over the next few days, life should have gone back to normal, but it didn't. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was Daniel. Every time my husband mentioned his best friend, whether it was a casual memory or a story, I felt my heart clench. And then it happened. One night, my husband suggested we invite Daniel over for dinner. My stomach dropped. "Why?" I asked, maybe too quickly. He smiled. "Because I haven't seen him in weeks, and he's like a brother to me. Come on, it'll be nice." I forced a smile and agreed, but inside, panic rose like a wave. The night of the dinner, I set the table carefully, my hands trembling as I laid out the plates. When the doorbell rang, my heart skipped. Daniel walked in, looking composed, but his eyes betrayed him. He glanced at me just a little too long before greeting my husband with a strong embrace. And that was the cruelest part, watching them laugh together, watching the bond between them, while knowing the truth that hung like a ghost in the room. The whole dinner, I barely touched my food. Every laugh, every story, every casual glance across the table felt loaded with meaning. My husband noticed my quietness and asked if I was okay. "I'm just tired," I said, forcing a smile. But Daniel knew. I saw it in the way his eyes softened, in the way he avoided speaking directly to me. He was holding the weight of his confession too. That night, after my husband fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I realized something frightening. It wasn't just Daniel's secret anymore. It was mine too, because I hadn't told my husband. I hadn't confessed what happened that night when he was away. I told myself I was protecting him, protecting us, protecting our marriage. But in reality, I was protecting myself from the chaos that truth would bring. And secrets have a way of growing heavier the longer you keep them. A week later, it happened again. I ran into Daniel at the grocery store. It should have been nothing, a polite hello, a passing smile. But the moment our eyes met, everything from that night came rushing back. He pulled me aside, his voice low. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I shouldn't have said anything. I couldn't hold it in anymore. But don't worry, I won't bring it up again." I wanted to believe him. But even as he said it, the way he looked at me told another story. And deep down, I realized some truths, once spoken, can never be taken back. I went home that evening, carrying two truths. The truth of the life I had built with my husband, and the truth of the secret that now lived between me and his best friend. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I didn't want to face. If love is built on honesty, what happens when the truth is the very thing that could break it? At first glance, life carried on. Breakfasts together, lazy Sundays, phone calls with family, it all looked perfectly normal. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. I felt it in the way I pulled back when my husband kissed me. I felt it in the way Daniel's eyes lingered when we crossed paths. And most of all, I felt it in the quiet moments. When I was alone, when my thoughts spiraled, when I wondered what if. The cracks were invisible to him, But to me, they were everywhere. My husband started noticing my silence. "Is everything okay?" he asked one night as we sat on the couch, the glow of the TV washing over us. I forced a smile. "Of course, just tired." But inside, I was drowning. Not because of what I had done, but because of what I hadn't said. Secrets are heavy, and mine was weighing me down. And with every day that passed, Daniel's confession became harder to bury. The pull toward Daniel. It happened in little ways. When my husband and Daniel watched a game together, I noticed Daniel sneaking glances at me when he thought no one was looking. When he texted my husband, sometimes he'd add a separate message for me. Harmless words, but filled with a quiet meaning I couldn't ignore. And worse, I didn't delete them. I told myself they were innocent. But the truth? They weren't. Because feelings don't need physical proof to be real. Sometimes the most dangerous affairs are the ones that exist only in the mind. One evening, my husband was late at work, and I found myself alone again. The house felt empty, heavy with silence. I poured myself a glass of wine, trying to quiet the restless thoughts swirling in my head. And then, another knock at the door. My heart jumped before I even opened it. It was Daniel. He stood there, hesitant, almost as if he had debated turning back. "I shouldn't be here," he said softly. And yet, he was. I let him in. I told myself it was just to be polite. Just for a moment. Just to talk. But we both knew the truth. The air was different, charged with something unspoken. We sat in the living room again, just like that night. Only this time, the silence between us was heavier, and when his hand brushed against mine, just barely, just for a second, I felt a rush of heat surge through me. I pulled back quickly, standing up, my voice trembling. "Daniel, you can't. We can't." He looked at me, his eyes filled with longing and pain. "I know," he whispered. "But tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me this doesn't mean anything to you." I opened my mouth to deny it, to shut it down, to protect everything I had. But the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I couldn't lie. Not to him, not to myself. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just protecting my marriage anymore. I was fighting myself. Every choice mattered now. Every second carried the weight of betrayal or loyalty. And the scariest part? I didn't know which way I was leaning. As Daniel stood to leave, his hand brushed mine again, softer this time, almost like a promise. "I'll wait," he said. And then he was gone. I locked the door, my heart racing, my hands trembling, and for the first time, I asked myself the question I had been avoiding all along. What if love isn't about right or wrong, but about what your heart refuses to let go of?